Chris Culp, the challenge champion here. Let me move my mic over here. Okay, so that's what you see over here. Great to see everybody. I'm excited for this conversation because the last time I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Angela Mulrooney, where were you when I talked to you last time? Because you're in a different place right now.
I was in San Juan del Sur, Nicaragua.
Nicaragua. There you go. Yeah. So now that was a lot of fun because it was a different background then. And now where are you today?
I am sitting in Paris, France.
And how are things over in Paris today?
Much colder, as you can see by the clothing. Usually I'm in a black tank top, and here it's not central heating like we're used to in North America. It's like a little heater in the corner, and it doesn't heat very well. So yeah, I'm wearing a lot more layers than I'm used to.
Nice. And I know last time we talked, I guess it was like a month ago at this time, you had a lot of life changes, and you live this life of what I would call the complete digital nomad, like go wherever you want, however you want, whenever you want. And I'll never forget right before the live, I think 2 days before, you said, hey, I'm going to go to Paris for a while. So, describe a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about, because that ties into this conversation today, burning it to the ground. And I mean, that's kind of almost what you did there. So maybe explain a little bit of how that process went and what it's like now being in Paris.
So it's funny because the original plan when I left Canada was to go and migrate and be in different places all the time. But when I landed in Nicaragua 5 days after I arrived, Canada canceled all the tropical flights back to Canada. And I honestly got a little bit spooked. And then I got comfortable. And then I stayed in Nicaragua for 3 years. But at the beginning of the year, January 1st, unfortunately, my pup got poisoned. And she ended up passing away very painfully. And I was just kind of like, okay, this is a sign. I'm free. I'm done with complication in this country. I had learned what I needed to learn. So in 2 weeks, sold off. I actually got rid of 3 giant suitcases worth of stuff that I had taken down to Nicaragua. And I was like, I'm going to be like going from place to place to place. I do not want to be hauling 300-pound suitcases with me. So I shed a bunch of stuff and bought a plane ticket and ended up in Paris 2 weeks after her passing.
Sorry about the puppy also. I was that day, you and I were communicating on something else also. So I remember that day was not the most pleasant of days either. But, it's kind of like, you got rid of all this baggage. You left all the bags back. Yeah, literally. I mean, what's that like going from, hey, I had all this gear to now just landing in Paris and I got basically 1 or 2 bags that you brought with you?
I'm still, after unpacking and now living here again, I'm like, I still have probably 3 times as much stuff as I actually need. So it's really funny how attached we get to things until you're like, well, if I just take a picture of that, the picture will remind me of the thing if it was an important item. But most of the stuff is just stuff that we accumulate. And I had tried really hard in Nicaragua not to accumulate, and yet I still ended up with so much stuff. So coming down here, it was funny. I ordered something on Amazon and it couldn't get delivered to my place. And I'm like, this is a sign. This is a sign that France does not want me to accumulate any more things. So I'm going to keep shedding a little bit more before I head off to my next location.
I had myself muted. And what do you know where that next location is?
Well, I know for sure I'll be moving to Greece mid-March. Between middle of February and middle of March is up in the air. So I may end up in Turkey. I may end up in Greece early. I may stay in France. So I got a couple weeks to decide before the apartment that I'm staying in is expired. But yeah, it's kind of fun being like, oh, what path is going to open up for me and what can I do with this?
I love this. And this is like, so let's talk about the topic a little bit today, because it ties into everything here, burning it to the ground. And I don't know if we're going to be burning anything physically during this live. You never know. I don't have any plans here. So if you're going to do that on your end of the pond, totally fine.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this whole idea of what it's really like to, and wherever you're coming in and listening, I see a few of you are on LinkedIn with us and 1 or 2 on Facebook right now. Let us know where you're coming in from, if you're live, where you're located, and if you're on replay, if you're on team replay, we'd like to know that also. But let's share a little bit about what this whole idea of just burning it to the ground is all about.
So what I find is most people who come into my world, whether it's a conversation on LinkedIn, it's in my programs, or even just in passing, there's so many parts of their life that they have built and they're like, well, I built it, so I should keep it, which is very akin to, I bought all this stuff, so I should be dragging it around the world with me. And there's so many parts of people's businesses that don't make sense. There's so many parts of what they're offering that is not within their passion, that doesn't make them happy, and yet
Yep.
they've been on this road, and so they're like, okay, I got to keep trucking, otherwise I'm going to destroy my life. And the truth is, there's very little consequences to making change in your life, even massive change. People have this fear that there's going to be like this massive fallout, that their business is going to collapse. And I promise you, the more you burn away and the simpler you get your offer, who you want to work with for clients, the kind of skills that you're leveraging, the faster you're going to grow, because it's like being on a little tiny, speedboat versus the Titanic. On a little speedboat, you can turn fast. The Titanic is going to take a long time to try and turn around. So the leaner and meaner you are, as far as team goes, as far as offers go, as far as the mechanics behind your business, the faster you can get to doing what you actually want to do. And honestly, the simpler your business is, the more you're going to sleep well at night, because you're not worried, oh my gosh, did this wheel fall off? Is there something that I don't know about? And I found that was when I moved to Nicaragua. Like, I thought, I burned down my life. Like, I sold off everything. I sold off one of my businesses. I sold off my house. And 3 months into being there, I was I was waking up in a panic in the middle of the night, because I had 14 full-time team members. I had built a complicated agency, and it was not what I wanted for my life. And so I understand, like, when someone comes in, they're like, oh, I hate having team members. I hate this about my business. And when I say, well, what if you burn that stuff away? There's delight in that.
Yeah.
And then they often go, that's not realistic. And the truth is, your reality is what you create. So you can choose a simplified reality that makes you happy, or you can choose to stay in your current reality that is making you miserable. I like when people choose their dream life instead.
Yeah, I'm all for choosing the dream life, but it's so true what you just said. I'm guilty as charged in multiple facets as I built out my offering with clients, and I had layers after layers after layers on it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as great as that felt, there was that day, and I just said, this makes no sense, because I looked at the lifestyle I had to live to sustain that. And the same thing is, oh my gosh, is all the automation set up on here? And when somebody comes in, will some of the team members take care of this, or is that something I do? And I just looked at how complex some of the things were in the back, and I just said, you know what? This is it. I have one core offer, and there's two ways that offer works. And everybody ends up working with me one-on-one in some shape or form in those, but part of it, one of them does have group in it, but it was just one core offer. And when I did that, life got a lot more simple, and it got simple to explain too, because I basically could just have a conversation with somebody that was looking to work with me and just say, hey, it's all the same offer. It's just, which flavor do you choose, this or this? And you decide, and we work together. And people were like, oh, I'll take that one, this one, versus where I see a lot of entrepreneurs, and I want you to talk about this a little bit more. Well, we got this low ticket offer here that's like, $500 to come in here. Oh, this one's $3,000. This one's $9,000. This one's $10,000. This one's 15. And I'm like, oh my God, what's the back end office look like in this? How do you sustain that? So when somebody comes to you and they're in that situation, because we've all been sold this bag of goods, you need the ascension model that just goes from low to very high. And I'm going to tell you, that does not work in my world, at least. I've seen this not work very well for a lot of people also. I know a lot of the gurus pitch that, and I understand why they pitch it, but I have found it's just easier to go in with what your value is, and those that are meant to work with you will work with you there. So kind of share a little bit of insight on a couple of things I just did there.
So when people have all these little offers, it's usually based in fear. They're afraid of leaving money on the table. They're afraid of, not being able to serve every single client who comes their way. And when you actually step back and look at it, what I suggest people do is go and figure out what the 5%, your top 5% of your clients, your income, your offers are making 95% of your income. And focus on those. And always, it is those clients who are most subscribed, highest ticket, who are most intense in the work that they do with you, are the ones that they pay you more, they have better outcomes, and they are so intent on getting to where they want to go. The ones who want to dip their toe in are dipping their toe in. The ones who go for the high ticket are jumped off the cliff, and they're like, oh, I will develop wings, and she's going to teach me how to develop those wings, right? So it's a very different mentality, and it's a very different expectation. This is one of the things when people are becoming coaches, oftentimes they're like, oh, you got to work one-on-one. I suggest throwing yourself off the cliff and do group, because you're going to learn so much faster how to build a curriculum, how to meet the expectations of your clients, especially if you're going in not at a $200 per hour price point, but you're going in at thousands of dollars per hour as your price point. If you're good, you can be charging that if you can get the outcome. But the expectations that are on you from yourself, because you're like, man, they're paying me a lot of money, I better deliver. And the clients are also coming with a higher expectation, because if they're investing a big chunk of cash, they're expecting a big outcome. And so it really does push your limits and helps you to get to your very best self, your highest level, and break through your fears so much more quickly than one-on-one.
Yep. You know, and I'll share, I just got off a call with my weekly group meeting that I do in my program. And, you know, there's the fact you show up, you got to be really present and ready to deliver for those that show up. And I love that part of things. But, you know, here's something else that's big is the accountability when that group is together. So like we just got done and everybody's like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm like, all right, now who's going to hold each other accountable? And that makes a massive difference on getting people further faster when they're in that environment. And I find, I mean, what do you find is a sweet spot for like how long a group program should last typically? And I know it does depend on what the ultimate outcome is also.
I find 90 days is pretty much the sweet spot, because you can get people moved, you can get a massive outcome, and you can also get them changing permanently. If you try and do it too short, if you're like, oh, we're just going to work with them for a month, it's really easy after a month to have not developed habits and fall back. So when you do the 90-day program, and then I also recommend they have at least a 3-month like keep in touch, or they level up to the next. They've learned the foundation in the 90 days, and now they've leveled up to the next program. That is helpful as well to keep them accountable, because it does take time, especially if they're, you know, we kind of go at breakneck speed in my accelerator. It's called an accelerator for a reason. But to be able to sustain the outcomes, and I'm not saying sustain the workload that you're doing in the accelerator, but to sustain the outcomes, you have to have leveled up. You have to have leveled up as a person. You have to have leveled up the programs that you've got going on in your mind. You have to level up your expectations and your standards for yourself. You also have to level up yourself as a consultant or a coach, because you are delivering a much higher level program, and that is your top tier offer. This is your group program, is not your downgrade in my world. Your group program is the group that people want to get into. And they're paying a boutique price for that, because it's going to be a small group that is going to get massive transformation.
And that's a key thing. See, that you actually get a lot of exposure in this group. Like, how well can you handle this kind of coaching, this consulting that you're doing for clients? You know, this is why I know you're really big on doing virtual events, because that gives the opportunity to really just show the exposure of, okay, here's how I can work with 20, 30, 40 people at once. And a lot of people are like, wow, how do I do it? And when they start to see the example of how to do it, it clicks. It's like, wow, this is how you bring it all together. And, you know, one of the things I love seeing in the group programs is when a client really starts to grasp this, and you let them come in and, hey, why don't you talk about what you're learning and how you're doing it? Then you get this amazing interaction of everybody else who's really engaged and taking action and sharing their stories and their journey, and the insight you get. I mean, at least in what I've seen in my group programs, when I have some people that are in similar industries and a few that are in different unique industries, the insight we get with some of these that are in the unique industries, that it's just like mind blowing, like things that we didn't think of, because people were just sharing what they faced as they went forward and what we're teaching them.
Yeah. And I actually teach people to make it very boutique. So like 6 clients in a group, that's it. So that you are fully in with them. And I teach them to be a partner in the person's success. So if they're paying you the chunk of cash, so say they're paying you $35,000 in tuition, then your expectation of yourself and their expectation for you is you are a partner in getting them to where they need to go. And it doesn't take much outside of the program. There's sometimes the odd conversation outside of the group, but that subscription to that small of a group, there's massive accountability, because no one can hide, right? And there is expectation to be vulnerable and talk about where you are presently at. Where do you want to go? Honestly, what are the numbers that you want to be achieving? Who do you actually want to be working with? What kind of outcomes do you want to create? So there is a community that's developed, because I would never go beyond the 6, because bigger than that, people get lost. And then there isn't that community developed. Like this group, they have been through, it's not really war, but they've been through a massive transformation together, right? And they've had these internal battles, and they come out the other side, and they are changed, and they are bonded, because now they really get each other, right? And a lot of people in their world don't get what they're going through. They don't understand what it's like to go through the accelerator and also level up who they are in their mindset, in their programming, in who they are as a person, how they show up in their business.
Yep.
And so there's, massive community when you keep it really boutique.
And you used, well, community, obviously, but then you used another keyword, transformation. And this is where a lot of people who try to do group programs, they miss it. They're not highlighting, what is the transformation of being part of this group. So explain that when you work with a client, like what's the kind of transformation you bring them? Like I could be your ideal client coming in right now. Where I might be starting at a point today. Where do you bring them to, and how do you highlight that in your marketing, especially because a lot of people struggle with this?
So one of the biggest transformations is really what they think is possible for themselves. And a lot of people have come in and they've been plateaued for a while. They haven't been able to break through an income ceiling or an impact ceiling either. And so they have been stuck for so long that they've convinced themselves that this is what life is going to be like. But then they see the potential of, well, I can 10 times my hourly income if I swap things. I just don't know how to transition that. So them being able to see the potential and then also be able to level up to make that their new standard is a completely different ballgame than just handing you a bunch of techniques that we're going to work through. So they didn't even realize they were playing small. And a lot of them, they're making $500,000 already or $1 million. And so for them to think of like, okay, I'm going to be able to level up to another level. Like they thought that was kind of the ceiling. And then we just blow that ceiling right off and show them the world is your oyster. Whatever you want, you can achieve. And also getting them to cut out all the crap. Like there's usually so much crap in what they're offering. They have fluff that they didn't even realize was fluff. But when they go back and listen to their program, if they have it recorded from before, they go, oh man, that wasn't even impactful. Why do I have that in there? So they can start getting rid of stuff that doesn't belong, add some things that actually are better, which allows them to take their program to the next level and charge a higher price point and create a bigger expectation for outcome from themselves and also from their clients.
And you've hit so many things on the journey I've been on, right? like that's the thing. Like I'm listening to you, and I'm like, yep, live that. And one of the biggest things as an entrepreneur, right? When you get a framework that works, right? All of a sudden you got this thing dialed. Then, like you said early on, the complexity you bring into that screws you, right? Because you got too many things going on. So how do you take that? And the thing is, if this is what most people don't realize, because we're all too ingrained in our businesses, it takes someone like you to come to Chris. Hey, let me see everything you're doing right now. That's great. Yep, I get it. Burn it. Just burn it and go with this.
Here's a match.
And I can understand the scary feeling because you're like, no, you know how long it took to build this out, put this out, like this is dial, that's dial. But living the other side of what it takes to manage all that, I actually realized how important it is to burn it. And it is so interesting of what you're saying for me personally right now. I'm going to share this is because most of my clients, like I do have a group community. So there's weekly that people can come on, but I also work with a lot of the clients, mostly one-on-one to get them fired up for 30 days. Cause I know that's what it takes. But I'm sitting here right now evaluating everything. And I'm like, you know what? In June, I'm just going to spend the rest of the year just doing group. And I've warned some people of this. People are like, hey, I want to work with you. I'm like, that's going to go away in June. They're like, what? I'm like, because I got to program that I know works and scales. I'm just going to give the keys to the kingdom on it. And it's only those that come with me for June. And it's like you said, it's going to be 90 days, a 90-day summer program that I can bring them through so they go into the fall, have a fall harvest, what I call. But there's that feeling internally. It's like, man, I'm going to miss working with people one-on-one as I used to. But it's not that because like you're still working with this group. It's just a different dynamic. And, as the Peloton, a cyclist here, you're getting the momentum of having all these folks working together, which is really cool.
Yeah. And if attending group is mandatory, that's a different dynamic than, oh, you can pop in when you have a question and then people don't pop in. So what I always say is like, start them together, end them together. So they know they've got 90 days to get her done.
Yep.
And they know what's happening each week. And with my groups, we just like work. So it's not like I teach and then they're off to their own devices. I don't trust people to be off to their own devices. I've been shot in the foot with that before. Yep. So we're like working and I'm consulting and coaching and doing it for them and doing it with them as we move through the program. So they have a robust business in a box by the time they're done. And it is complete. They've got everything to be able to scale to 7 figures.
I love this. Let's talk about this a little bit because I know you have an opportunity coming up and I saw a couple of people scam what was up here. But some of what we're talking about, I'm going to put this down on the bottom also now so you can see this. You're doing the Join the Pivot. Oh, I'm reading what I say. The Pivot to Profitable Entrepreneurship Intensive. You're doing that we're doing that on Friday the 23rd at 12 Eastern. And I can share the screen if you want. Also, I have the screen, so just let me know. But why don't you talk a little bit about, like, because we've highlighted a little bit of this, but what's this intensive really going to do? And anybody interested, right here, yeah, right there, just screenshot that, and it'll put the link right on your computer for you or your phone.
So the whole point of the Pivot to Profitable Entrepreneurship Intensive, same as the challenges, is to really get people moving through their blocks in a 5-hour period. So on day one, we talk about transforming your credibility. And a lot of transforming your credibility happens with you. So you got to figure out what your genius is and get comfortable talking about your genius.
Yep.
Then on the second day, we talk about owning your genius, which is once you've identified it, now what is actually holding you back up until now from actually leveraging that genius and going all in on that. And it's really interesting, all the little gremlins that people talk about, they were told they weren't good enough as a kid. They had this failure as a professional. And so they have this doubt in themselves, even though they know this is like what they want to talk about. This is what they want to do. And oftentimes when they talk about what they really want to do, the hair on my body stands up, which is always a good indicator that that is the lane that they need to go into. On the third session is really talking about, like, how do you get clients? So you know what your genius is, how are you going to package it and get it out to the world so that people actually want to work with you? Because it's great to be a genius at something, but if you don't know how to teach or you don't know how to sell it, you're hooped. And then we talk about how to actually leverage the pivot blueprint. So you're actually like building out how you're going to do this, because it's great to be like posturing and be like, I'm going to make $1 million this year and feel good saying this in the middle of a room, and then not do anything about it feels really crappy after the fact. But in the moment, it's an adrenaline rush to make this big declaration. So we're building out, how do you actually follow through on this and not muck it up? And then we also talk about avoiding failure to pivot. So we know that you're going to hit roadblocks along the way. That's normal. But what are you going to do about it when you do? And so we're building contingency plans. How do you get yourself back into the mindset of that higher standard, that higher expectation? How are you getting yourself back in the mindset of, my reality is my choice, right? And being able to get yourself back on track so that when things feel like a setback, you perk yourself up. Doesn't mean you're pushing things down. That I don't agree with, like, shoving your feelings down. That's the worst way to have an explosion later on that you're not expecting. But actually building the strength to keep going no matter what. And sometimes it's like, okay, I can only do 20 minutes of work a day. What am I actually going to do during those 20 minutes to keep moving my business forward no matter what?
So over 5 hours, we're going to work through this, and it's going to be one heck of a transformation in those 5 hours. Because I know you've done this usually in a 5-day challenge broken out over 5 days. This is just going to be a right to a sprint on a Friday afternoon, nonetheless, at least afternoon New York time. I know it's a little bit later on the Paris side of things there. Yeah. But I mean, it's going to be a great way to go into the weekend and actually start going into March and beyond. So if you want to join, just take a screenshot, put your link right there. You can see, boom, you hit that, and it'll come right up on your phone. And you can join. I'll be on this also with Angela, so we'll have a lot of fun going through this with you all. And you've seen clients go through your 5-day challenge, which essentially, like I said, was the same thing. What have you seen on the other side for some of these people who have gone through this program with you?
There's a lot of things that start getting burned away. So they really start taking it
bring
to
back
that.
This.
Yeah, literally. Bring matches and bring some paper that you can burn. But yeah, they start actually simplifying things. They start showing up differently. I oftentimes see them revamp their LinkedIn profile. They start creating content differently. Like, I'll talk about my content methodology as well and the formula that I use with my clients. But they start actually taking action towards getting to that next level. Oftentimes people, when they try and do it yourselves, they're missing the nuance. And honestly, in 5 hours compared to a 40-hour program, there's a lot of nuance being left on the table, but they at least start taking and testing if this can actually work for them.
And that's what it's all about. It's a short sprint to get you into that mode of, yes, this is what I need. Here's how I need it. Now let's go implement what you get out of this. So I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be exciting. It'll be a great 5 hours on a Friday afternoon. So after this, you got some traveling to do. So you're going to do that event. I know we talked about it at the beginning, and then you'll have to dial in on where you go. Is it Turkey? Are you going to Bali? I know, did you mention that at all too early? I mean, where do you think long term you're going to start bouncing around this globe?
So interestingly, I have decided I'm just going to keep migrating east until
Okay.
I loop. So I'll eventually, like when I want to get back to North America, I'll probably fly and hang out in Japan for a while, fly to Hawaii, and then jump to LA, and then I don't know where we'll go after that.
That's cool. So yeah, basically you just started going boom, boom, boom all around there. And this is what Angela's going to help you really realize. If this is a lifestyle you want, she's going to show you how to do that as part of this journey. That might not be your desired result. It might be something else, but the point is freedom. That's the word you want to realize. Angela's set this up so that things can be free. So I'll let you close this out here. Coming down, I try to keep these around 30 minutes. Any final remarks? Are you going to burn something?
I forgot to bring the matches near me, so no.
Really not good.
I am in an Airbnb. I don't want to get kicked out just yet. But
Yes.
trust me, things get burned all the time. And in the jungle, it was easy. I would just go into the back and light things up. So sorry, no fire today. But hopefully I have lit a fire under your butt to actually get registered for this and start making some changes in your own life.
Awesome. So those on replay, just like I said, let us know where you came in from. And those that were live, I'll go back and check some of the comments here. But we appreciate you all. Hit that link there. And we'll see you all in, 2.5 weeks. And stay on with me. I'm going to end this right here. Thanks all.